Okay. I lost my phone. That's part of this climax of events that's occurring today. Today started last night after midnight. But anyway, I have to share it on the computer versus my phone. Or let me just that way it'll be there. That'll give people a little bit of time to get into. All right, let's see. Edit and Ginny. Ginny. Okay. There you go. Boom. It is shared. Whew. Wow. This is going to be huge. I can feel it in my bones. And so I am so excited to be here today. I'm probably going to cry my eyes out. I have no idea exactly why, but my soul knows. So let me just preface it by saying, obviously, for those that have been tuning in over the years, you know Ginny. She's an incredible person and a very, very good friend, soul connection. And it's interesting because I've had a monumental few days that has been the most incredible since I reawoke. And it's so interesting because the first person I ever had a Zoom call with was 13 years ago, with a lady named Virginia Drake, who was just on, another beautiful sister, soul connection. And she goes by Ginny, too, and she's a horse whisperer, too. And so we ended up having to have a late show because my power went out, and I had to cancel the second show, and her and I ended up having it was our second show ever, and together, and yeah, I've just had an incredible, and things started coming out in the conversation, and then the first thing you do, can I say something to you before we go on? I have words to say to you, and I said, you didn't even say that part. You just said, can I have your permission? And I already knew in my heart, I felt it, and I said yes. So that's kind of where we started, and she started to say the words, and then things started to come in, and I started to cry. And so I said, yes, let's do the rest online. So thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing this with us and me. Yeah. Do you want to say the words out again?
Kupa'a Noa. It's Polynesian, Hawaiian, and it means, well, it's a complicated language, so it can be interpreted a lot of different ways. There are different words, so I will give you the language I was given, and then I did look it up because this is just, I don't speak the language, and I'm given the words, and I will give you a few other words that could be substitute. But what I was told is that this particular race of beings, and we've mentioned them before, creator level beings whose soul template was copied to create the first humans in Lyra and continues to be hybridized throughout this galaxy, concluding here on Earth. And now is the time that we will return to that pure original intention of the creation of the biological human that was always intended to evolve back outside of time. It was never originally created with the intention to be physical forever. There was always an intention, but as that physical biological form was interfered with, copied, divided, cloned, hybridized, the original intention was lost. And so many of us, you probably, certainly more than me, are here to remind humanity, bring that frequency of the original intention. And this particular race of beings, they have been called by a name that was brought forward by a man named Alex Collier. And this name came to the Andromedans, his contacts, because they heard it from a race that was adversarial to the Pa'anoa. And the adversarial race, if it's okay, we don't need to get into anything so-called negative today. We'll just stick to the positive.
I'm good with everything.
They, they gave this race the term Pa'atal, which I have come to understand actually means complete destruction. And so I have been asked to not so much correct it, but bring forward different language for those who feel that it resonates. And that is Pa'anoa, N-O-A, Pa'anoa. And I was specifically asked to speak the words to you, Ku Pa'anoa, the one who brings complete freedom. And another word for complete could be steadfast. And another English word for Noah, this might really trip you out, is literally the streak of color within a pearl, which many people perceive the true soul color to be opalescent with streaks or sparks of color in it.
Yeah.
So the one who brings complete freedom, the word complete could be substituted. There are about 25 or 30 words that Pa can translate to, depending upon what precedes the word and what comes after the word. It's a very complicated language. I do not pretend to speak it at any level. And then Noah, also depending upon the parts of speech, whether it's a verb or an adjective or a noun that precedes it or follows it, it can mean different things. But what I was shown, the message, the translation that I was given is the one who brings complete freedom. Now, the one does not mean any one person, like people talk about chosen one or something. No. We are each the one to some degree.
Right.
Whether you are part of that soul lineage or not, obviously all density, all DNA will eventually return to oneness. We are all one. But this particular creator being, this soul lineage, their area of expertise, the area that they created in, is the Milky Way galaxy. There are other creator level beings that created life in other galaxies. And you and I have talked before. Now, I haven't necessarily commented on it, other than that I would say things and it would trigger a memory for you. And you were sort of drawing your own connection, connecting the dots, as it were. I always knew, and I mentioned, I think once, I think you were here at the beginning, the last time we spoke, or maybe the second to the last time. I think we've spoken 8 or 10 times. But it was very clear that with you speaking with Virginia Ginny today, I myself, Virginia Ginny, highlighting or touching base with, or sort of remembering your first podcast ever, and this woman, Ginny, requesting that we meet on the 11th of February, and you and I suggesting that we talk 30 days from our last date, which was the 11th.
Yeah.
And what I heard when I was asked to speak those words to you, wouldn't it be fitting on this day for you to remember the truth of your galactic origin?
Wow. Wow. I don't even know where to start, but so I go to the Bay every night, and I don't think I'm going to make it through this show. I go to the Bay every night. There's been this ascending tsunami energetic force that's been rumbling inside of me really my whole life. But in the last few weeks, it's really started to kick in a way that it hadn't in 14 years. 14 years ago, I was on the streets by my own choice, developing a constant communion and having incredible divine episodes, which is not unique to me. I know that. But this is what it's all about, the synchronicity, the sharing, the code, and the activations. So I go to the beach every night. And about 10 days ago, I go to the beach at night, and I sit in my spot with the trees and my friends, and I feel this light above me. And it's a bit cloudy, it's dark. And I could, I look back up to see what it is, and as I look up to see what it is, it just does this, and I can't get my eyes on it. And then I heard, it's Pleiades. Now, Pleiades is only this big in the sky, unless you got a really good night. And all I can see is when I look where it is, I can just see this faint glow. And then immediately I know to look to the left, to the south, the southwest. And I see Aldebaran, which has been speaking to me for the last few years at different times. And when this last phase started on June the 1st, it was there. Okay? So then, from there, I'm guided to look to Orion's belt. Okay? Orion's belt is pointing right to Pleiades, and the arrow of Orion is pointed right to Aldebaran. I know I came through. I remember I came through Andromeda. Okay? And from there, a whole circuit started involving Lyra, involving Sirius, Alpha Centauri. There's some other ones, and so I had some pieces of it, But the crazy thing was, I would go back, and I would go back, and I'm familiar enough with the stars to know the motions. The moon's moving this way, and the moon was involved in some of this as well. And every night I would go, it would come to meet me, okay? Right up to last night, right? And I kept thinking, why is this showing itself to me? And there's this island that's in the bay. It's the only body of mass in the bay. It's shaped like a breast. And I've had this whole communion going on with it. And during the middle of this interaction with the star systems, there was like an arc pointing towards the center of this island, and in between it there was this dim light. And they said that, and I said, what is that? So after a while I figured it out. It was Venus. So Venus was pointing right to the center of this island where I've been having this communion with for months, and this single light turns on in the center of the island when things start to heighten. So there's something to be said for you getting this information to share with me and for us to share publicly. It signifies something. I knew it when I woke up today. When I woke up today, I felt like I never have in my life. I felt like, but I don't even know how to explain it, but I felt like I feel like a soul. Like I've never felt like this powerful before. And I know that whatever's about to happen, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm here to serve. I've always been here to serve. And I'm not taking any shit anymore because all that shit comes from me, I own all of this experience, and I do remember the beginning. I remembered the beginning a long time ago. I remember the pink goo. We started with this pink plasma goo that smells a lot like the ocean. And it's a smell that's come back to me many, many, many other times. And so, but what you're bringing in, because I knew I was here at the beginning. I've always known that. But what you're bringing in is the parts that have been the mind swipe, right? The parts that are only pieces came in of the galactic wars for a couple of years and this and that. But it's important for some reason. I don't know why. And it's not just about me. Like you said, we're all the one. But there's something gone down today that is, the line's been drawn. The bullshit's over. And this is not to be vengeful. It's simply to put everything in its proper place once and for all, and to correct things universally. And this is the message that I received before I went on with Ginny. It was last night, and it was something like, the entire world is in your hands. You can create a paradise here, or you can continue to latch onto a belief system or streams or propaganda or psyops, whatever. But you can touch every single soul, every single sentient being, every atom, every cell through the transmitter that your body is. It's blowing my mind here, But I don't know what's going to happen. Like in the real world, I lost my phone. I was blessed to lose my phone for a third time in Mexico, and I'm not getting it back. And then last night, the only access I have to cash, which you have to have cash in Mexico, they don't use cards in these little bitty towns, isn't working anymore. So I have no card to get money out of an ATM. I have my Social Security debit card, which is $700 a month. It's got $300 on it. I'm not worried about any of this. I want you to be very clear about this. I went on a spirit walk 14 years ago. It lasted 2 years, and the first phase ended after 7 months, and that's exactly about this time now. The second phase was when Soulogy started. It was March the 10th, Morgan's birthday. I was given the name Soulogy. I didn't know her. I didn't know the galactic part of this at all. And 4 days later, I started a Soulogy group. And I feel the rhythms. I've been shown this since June the 1st. I've been shown these rhythms and these patterns, the spiral, and the energies and everything happening. At this time, 14 years ago, I was in jail for 34 days, unjustly. And that was really the foundation of my journey, because I went so deep in that jail. I had 2 legal pads, and I wrote on every single space, on every single piece of paper, channeling and transmitting. So I know I'm not going to jail. I know I'm not going to be writing to that extent probably. It's the energy, the connection, and now it's 14 years later, and Ginny, the previous Ginny, she was explaining to me it's a 5, and a 5 is some type of major, in her major frequency change, major vibrational change. And that's what it feels like, but it doesn't feel like it's just me. I just feel like somebody shot a starter pistol this morning in the air, boom. Now, I don't know if I'm going to stay in Mexico. I don't know if I'm going to walk back to the United States. I don't know if I'm going to walk across the border to the Guatemala or go up into the mountains and live with the shamans or whatever. But I know one thing. I have never felt more the words, I am soul. And I am not going to stop talking about this. I'm not. It's time. It's time. We've waited long enough. We know what's going on. And it's all on us. And it only takes one person. It only takes one soul to change the whole thing. And I don't understand the math. I don't understand the geometry. I don't understand the relationship between the micro and the macro. But I know it's all there. And I know that we're not God-like. We're God. We're a piece, and that's all it takes. And we're starting to do it together, and this is the way I feel this is, at least in my world, this is the way we do it. We talk openly. We cut the bullshit. We cut the personas, the agendas, and we just tell the story, because all that information's inside of us. You just spoke those words to me, and on the 3rd syllable, it went off. Noah. It just went off, So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for allowing me to speak.
Well, there's a few more. if you
I'm
can
ready.
stay,
Yeah,
if you can stay grounded and stay seated. But before I give you the next piece, can you clarify for me, when you say you came through Andromeda, do you feel that you came through the Andromeda galaxy to this galaxy? So you were there first and then you came here?
Okay, so the way it was shown to me, this is going back 14 years ago. I said, where did I come from? And what I was shown was the Milky Way. And then poof, there was a poof, and I appeared, right? Later on, I understood that I came from that galaxy. Like that was, just like I've had a journey through this galaxy, I've journeyed, obviously we all have, through other galaxies and star systems. So I wouldn't say I'm from there. I've been there, okay? Like the way it feels to me, and this is what I've always struggled with, has been I'm from here. And like even interacting with Morgan over the years, who's very galactic, I could remember things. There were things that were shown to me, or lots of things, right? But I always felt like I was from here. And I still do. And yet that's all part of me too. That's how I would explain it.
I just wanted that clarification because that's what I was shown, and I wanted to make sure you weren't referring to the constellation. I just wanted to make sure
I wasn't referring.
energetically we were on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
100%. That's where I know
so
that's
next,
where I know Alex from. True.
Yeah. True. So you ready for the next piece?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an advanced step, and probably everybody that's watching this show right now at some point in time will go through this step. It follows the entire dismantling of the compartmentalization and the separation of our energy field and the chakra system and the subtle bodies, basically, as everything begins to merge into one. That's a process that people go through as they are transcending third density reality, third density consciousness levels. So this next piece, I don't want anybody to say, why can't I do that today? There may be people listening that did it and they don't even know, and they're already past it, and they're like, oh, that's what they might say. Oh, that's what that was. I wondered, But if somebody's wondering, why aren't they there yet, or whatever, this is a very chaotic place, and we're all so unique and have so many unique experiences. We're experiencing different things on different days, maybe next week, who knows? So this is very specific to you, Todd. So each of us have what we would term nanoparticulates of crystals in our brain. And scientists have just given them a name. Quantum physicists have just given them a name because they discovered them on Earth. They haven't yet discovered them in our bodies, but they will. And it's limited to the brain and the heart, the neurology of the heart, where some cardiologists and neurologists say that there are certain cells within the heart that look exactly like brain cells, function exactly. That's the higher functioning of the heart, the neurology, right? So those crystals basically correspond to the different densities within this entire universal structure, which is, I don't even know a number large enough to verbalize how many different holograms, how many different planets there are within this universe. For me, in this universe, I have very limited number of other incarnations in other galaxies. The preponderance of my incarnations are within this galaxy. So, and everybody's different. What I am aware of regarding these crystals is that they support us in our soul's communication with the so-called higher dimensional or other dimensional aspects of us, kind of like the org chart of our soul. And so what I was asked to say to you is, do you feel that you are ready now to align all of these crystals within your being, to align? And this is basically saying you're ready to sort of function a little bit more like Morgan, right? A little more aligning with the memories and the history, the ancient history of your soul. By saying yes, that's basically what you're saying.
Yes. Yes.
There was no doubt.
Well, because it happened last night.
Imagine your soul, the essence of your soul within you, the light. For me, it's my sternum. That's where I focus, and just radiate that light 360 degrees. until it fills up your entire body and your entire energy field, and ask my language is oversoul. Other people might have a different language, higher self, soul family, whatever. It doesn't matter what you call it, it's perfect. And ask for support in aligning these crystals for your clear communication at a universal level.
Yes, thank you.
It can be a little bit emotional. For me, I got a little bit dizzy. I had some experiences of feeling almost nothing from time to time, where your neurology is shifting and changing, and you're just really realigning, and your field is being reorganized. It can, different people react different ways. Some people sleep a lot. You and I, after we talk to one another, we always sleep a lot.
It's true. It's true. I guess what I'm feeling is you said there was no hesitation, because I went through this like a little kid in the last 24 hours. And, when you're a little kid, because of the way things were presented, in my case, traditional Catholic Church, and so those icons, and you would hit these points where you would pray. You would pray, and you would ask for all assistance. And back then, I remember the first time it happened was my parents were fighting, and I was upset because my mother was upset, and I wanted to protect her, But I remember laying in my bed and singing "Kumbaya," and that was my way of, like a mantra, of pulling in all of the spiritual guides that I was in touch with, which was really Jesus and Mother Mary and Joseph and a couple more. But so I did that yesterday, at 64, and I called in, all my universal aspects, all the everything, and it wasn't due to any circumstance in my life in this incarnation at this time. Nothing. It just had to do with, what? I want to serve. Show me what to do. Allow me this opportunity. I'll do whatever I have to do. And that's kind of where I left it. So it feels like this occurrence with you and with the previous Ginny is somehow connected and signaling me at some conscious level to bring it all together. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's happening to a lot of people, and I'm very grateful that you're sharing your journey so openly and honestly, authentically. And for those people who just recently joined, I strongly recommend going back and watching the beginning, because Todd said some incredibly profound things.
Yeah, it's a big day. It's the biggest day of my life, and I can't be the only one. There's something in the water here, and we know there's not chronological time. We know this. So I feel like I don't know how to explain it, but like if you walk into a situation, the only way I can kind of draw an analogy is when I was a teenager playing basketball, and I was pretty good, and there were just times I would walk onto the court and I knew that I would win, and it wasn't arrogance or cockiness. It was just, and it was spiritual. Playing ball was spiritual. There was a rhythm and a flow at times when things were aligned. That's what this feels like to me. It feels like we've got our marching orders, our back is covered, and let's go to work. And really, this is passion. This isn't work. This is passion. I love doing what I do, and I'm good at it. And my old boss used to say, the higher you go, the more your ass shows. And I get a lot of people project on me, and I've got thick skin and I can handle it. Sometimes it hurts. That's part of being human, and that's probably the biggest thing that I've ever withheld. I was just thinking about how those stuff is coming in. The biggest thing I've ever withheld hasn't been some dirty secret, or whatever. It's been when something hurts me, I would not let them know it hurt me. And talking to the other Ginny and talking about the things that she was talking about, because she came on. If you want to watch the first 10 minutes of something, go watch the 10 minutes of that show. Because we started late, she came on, and she's 75 years old, and she's spitfire, man. And she came on. She said, I've had enough of this. I'm 75. I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. This is what's going on. It's just one big fucking psyops, and boom, boom, boom. And she said, one of the things she repeated 2 or 3 times was, she said, tell people how you feel. Tell them how you feel. And I realized sometime between now and then, talking to you, that this is the one thing I've never been able to express, is when somebody hurt me. Really hurt me. And of course it's not them. It's one of my lessons to learn here, to share that feeling openly, and to allow myself to be free of the burdens that they become as they're, as you dig a hole and bury them. So that feels important to say.
One of the things I've been asking for more of recently is kindness and compassion. And we were talking about it last week in a group of ladies that I'm part of. And I said, I'll get in line twice for that. I'll get in line twice for compassion for all of us, for what we're going through, for what we've been through, and how difficult sometimes an awakening journey can be, and how circuitous it can be, and how much very, very limited controlling information has been put forward metaphysically and religious wise. It's so much to learn and to cling on to and to celebrate, and then to quickly turn around and have to let it go. And one of the things that I've been cautioned about by my soul is that as we traverse the fourth density consciousness realms, some of the most difficult things to let go of are, number 1, religion, 2, metaphysical concepts or paradigms, 3, part of those 2 is, being a healer or believing that one can heal others. And then obviously the science and medicine, etc. But those are the primary hurdles. Waking up and becoming self-aware. To be honest, it doesn't take a lot to shift into the fourth density. If we think it's been rough getting out of the third density, look out. The fourth density has a lot of information there. There's a lot there for us to let go of. There really is. And I think that is going to require a tremendous amount of kindness and compassion. And I know for me, my youngest daughter, I have 2. We were talking on the phone yesterday, and she hurt my feelings. But I cannot tell my 34-year-old daughter. It's impossible. You cannot tell a 34-year-old, with 2 master's degrees, who knows everything and doesn't believe in anything, I believe in, that she hurt my feelings. It's not something that is permissible in our relationship. So for me, absent the ability to speak my truth in the way that you're learning to, kindness and compassion is where it's at.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was telling her a story about my dad. Like a lot of us became estranged from my family, and didn't see my dad for 8 years. And there was a situation with my dad and one of my children, one of my daughters, and it was a pretty ugly. But it's also reflective of the ugliness that's coming to the surface in this world right now, i.e. Epstein et al., right? So I went to see him 2 or 3 times and got to know him again post-stroke. Got to have a drink with him, got to eat with him. I had some money at the time. I was able to pay for everything, and that was nice, to be able to return that to your parents. And when I was coming here to Mexico, I had been grappling with this for a long time, and even discussed it with 2 or 3 family members as more of the information came to the surface. And I told them, I'm going to go tell them that I know. I'm going to tell them that I know, and I'm going to also let them know that I love him unconditionally, and because I could actually feel that I did. And so I went to see him, took him to dinner, brought him back home, and he's sitting in his lazy boy. And I was sitting across from him, just looking at him. And I just walked up to him, and I put my arms around him, and I gave him a kiss. I said, I'll see you later. But I did not tell him because I held it in. It just wasn't necessary. It wasn't going to do anything now. I was already free. I was already free. And the crazy thing is, last time I talked to him was June 1st, when everything kind of flipped over here. For some reason, I called him because he would call me all the time, and I just wouldn't answer. Not because, I can't talk to anybody. It's very hard for me to talk to anybody. If I'm doing this, it's different. So it was about 2-3 weeks ago, he's calling me on the phone. And I answered the phone. It was on FaceTime. And it was the most beautiful conversation I've ever had with him. I think with any man. And it was sweet. It was just innocent, and it was sweet. And at the very end, he said to me, thank you for answering the phone and talking to me. We can do this. And you're right. Compassion is key, because there's going to be a lot of ugly stuff come out. And the vengefulness, the justice, the universe takes care of all that stuff. What goes around comes around, in the story. But to be able to have compassion, like in a situation that I'm describing, and to understand, and we've all got this in our DNA, we've both been the victim and the perpetrator. I have a lot of memories of being in like monasteries and being sexually abused. And then I was telling Ginny this on the previous show, that there was a time in meditation and communion where the roles flipped. And I was able to step into the soul of that which I thought was separate from me and see the journey that he had. Victims make perpetrators. It's a fact. We can't divorce ourselves from any aspect of this. How can you, if we're omniscient, which I believe I am, and I know you are, I know we all are, we just don't buy it because of all this programming and everything, but everything is mine. I am the mother. That's what that island taught me. At first, it was the mother. I went through a series of weeks of communion with her. I visited it. I went into Inner Earth. I went all over the place. I met Morgan in there, all kinds of stuff. And then one night I went out there about a month ago, and she said, this is you, don't you? You are the mother. And from that point, a channel opened up between me on the beach and the island, and all this, all this energy was available. And then from there, a lot like what you were doing a while ago, there was just this sphere that just expanded. And I work with it every night. I worked with it last night. The ocean turned gold. I traveled to Australia because I'd seen a picture of the house at Morgan's house sitting. I've seen a picture. It's across from the beach, and she sent me a picture of the entrance, and I went right there. I went through the gold ocean. I saw my friends under the water, people of the blue and these gold dolphins, and I went all the way to the ocean. I went to that place, and I walked up on the beach, and I went up across the road onto the property, and I was a sphere. I was a sphere. I didn't have to try to do anything. I was just a sphere. And I was just being there. That's all. But this is who we are. Like, this is something that I can feel today. Maybe it's because of that last night. We think that we're losing something. We think that we're lacking something. But the truth is, she's right here. My dad's right here. Right here. We're cracking this thing open. I feel this is what's happening. Thank you.
Okay, you ready for the third piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Like my grandmother used to say, she's one of my chief guides, my first guide. She's got a whole history she showed me. But she'd always say when she was alive, she'd say, everything happens in trees. In her broken English. I used to give her shit about that all the time.
Okay, so here's the third piece.
Okay.
You carry within your soul template, and some people talk about the soul star chakra above the head carrying the history of the soul, right? So it is there that the basically 200 million souls from future Earth came back to bring the original template of humanity forward, and other souls of that soul lineage, they are all the Pa'anoa. And so that template, that original DNA, the intention, the thought, the intention behind the creation of the form resides within you. And that is why you are so well placed and communicating with so many people individually, as you and I are communicating now, but then across the world as people are watching and listening. And so you carry that template to reorganize the DNA of the body that you were born into, so that it will become what many people are referring to as Homo luminous, the ascended human. There's so many different words for it, so many different perspectives. I'm not trying to promote any particular perspective, but just the original intention of the creator of the original form, the original DNA of the creator beings who created that original form, their intent, because that intent with all the hybridization, as we talked about earlier, has been diluted. And so you are one of hundreds of millions, right? Hundreds of millions who are carrying that template and bringing it forward and allowing your own body's DNA to be rewritten, to be an example, to be the proof that it is true, that it is possible. And I was also asked, I guess there is a fourth thing, to remind you that of the word leader and leadership, and that at night when you travel, you are being reminded of the tremendous leadership capacity that you have. And that there is a galactic leadership academy of sorts to help souls remember, to help souls heal and traverse out of the depths of this forgetfulness, to remember the truth of who they are, and that for you to please remember that the position of leadership that you are being mentored for, and you are actualizing here in real life right now as we speak.
That all resonates, yeah. Yeah. A lot of this stuff has been in the field the last few days too. Like the part that you started with, it, I had these visions even before I lost my phone a week ago, and I was well, I was walking. I was just walking. I was walking up into the mountains and a few other places, and I had like a golden oval aura around me. And that wasn't the gist of it. The gist of it was what you were saying. And again, I have to just give my own experience here. I'm not saying anything about me or nothing, but it was obvious to me that that was the point. The point was is that people were looking at this person and going, you know, they were like looking at him and pointing at the person. It wasn't about what you eat. It wasn't about what you say. It wasn't. It was just this source energy just walking around. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I would have never remembered that until you said that. But that was part of it. That was part of it. This leadership thing. I've always known, but not to the degree that you're talking about. But what I will say that's been in my field recently is it's very similar to what you talked about. I just couldn't put it into words. Something like what you were saying, I would never use these words, but like academy. Almost like I'm in class,
Yes.
and this is my assignment. Like we're running our assignments is as we sit in this class kind of thing. And I've known for a long time, at least I've felt for myself for a long time, that everything that I do, everything I say, everything I think, every single thing that I think, because thoughts are things, say and do, no matter how mundane or you know, human it is, it affects every single piece of me multidimensionally. It could be a huge endeavor, make or break a huge endeavor on another realm of existence. It could be a major, energetic tsunami that I'm involved in, and by the grace or the integrity that I conduct myself by, it affects that, even though it seems like it's a mundane, trivial thing of a human being. We're super powerful, and it's time to wear it. That's what I feel like right now. I just absolutely like this is it. Why is there any other reason here? Why this is why I came. This is why I came. That's the way I would put it. I came to do what's being downloaded to me again, and in this last day or two, and not to stop. Not to stop. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They're going to take you out of the realm. I don't. But I've had that conversation in December, and I've been told you're not going anywhere. Well, I don't want to. Not anymore. Yeah.
I'm supposed to ask you, may I have your permission to share with the audience a soul directive or a soul memory that was given to me 10 years ago? I had never received, as you would call it, a download before. And I grabbed a piece of paper and I started scribbling, and it was like 5 or 6 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. By the time I was done, it was so much information so fast that some of the sentences may be incomplete. I might be missing an of or a the or something because I was writing so quickly, but would that be okay?
Absolutely, 100%.
Sorry if it makes you cry. In the beginning, we existed as sound and sparks contained in the oneness. As the nature of life evolved, there was constant opportunity to explore and engage in projects or dispositions that allowed for growth and a fulfillment of expansion. This led to complications, and with each expansion, distortion occurred. No way of knowing the extent to which creating life would distort away from the original intention. Efforts were made to reconnect. In the beginning, they were not successful. If it occurred, it was only temporary. As creation divided and divided and divided, each new set went on to explore and became a separate creation. This led to additional distortion and only distanced each creation further from the original. Some beings, thinking they were superior, replicated with hybrid strains. This served to distance more. It became more difficult to understand and identify that which was original and that which was duplication. It is a daunting task to retrace our steps and return to the original creation, but it is possible to do. Always seeking source, always being able to gauge through your heart what is true, what is real, what is copied, and what has been constructed will be key. One earth. One earth. Both density and DNA will return to the oneness.
That's like the preface to the Book of Life here. That's pretty much captures it all right there. Because that's the way I've seen it. It's like, it's not the past and the future. There's all this lateral, you might call them alternate timelines. Because every single, just what you described, I've seen that. And I was shown, and this is very recent, how those are collapsing. And the gist of that experience or that information coming in was speaking to the profound aspect of it, speaking about us, that this is the work that we've done. We've actually taken, we think we had this one trauma. Well, I've seen one in particular that was 36 different versions. They showed me 36 different versions of one timeline, one decision, one situation that went a different way and became this timeline. So that's the expanse of our efforts. We're basically cleaning up our stuff, by claiming it. Not separating. This is like it's like upside down. We see the psyops. We know the template behind it. You're like people like you bringing it forth. It's easy to see. What is it based on? It's based on separation. We can say fear. We can say fear of programs of death, but it's not. These are all just fucking byproducts of it. It's separation. I am not separate from my wife. I don't give a damn 7,592 miles because I look at it every day. Okay? I'm not separate from my father or my mother. I am my father. I am my mother. We are one. We have this capacity to create something so freaking incredible that we can actually look at ourselves in a physical mirror. This isn't New Age bullshit. This is literally, as people would talk about, they would say, 2,000 years ago there was one person walking on the earth, and that's debatable. Okay, because there was a Mary Magdalene, and there was a James, his brother, and that the day would come when there would be millions of them. And I feel like that's what's happening. We're overriding, we're transforming, we're returning. That's what it is. You're right. We're returning. We're not bringing anything back here. It's already here. It's always been here. It just got layer after layer after layer, and then you have the multi-dimensional human aspect where it becomes all those streams you're talking about laterally.
We were separated, and the technology of the hologram was, they had so many trillions of years to play around with it that they figured out how to create alternate timelines. And we divided and divided and divided into all these different versions and copies, and we're bringing it all back together now, to put it very, very simply.
And that compassion, that's the real thing. Humility, because you can't fake that. Humility to me, I've been served so much humble pie in the last 7 days you wouldn't even know. But I'm good at eating it now. And but the other thing is this compassion. If we really feel like there's something out to get us, then there's something out to get us. But all this stuff coming out out of the woodwork, even though they're slow dripping it, and it's a psyops within a psyops within a psyops, covering up the stuff that we don't supposedly even know about, but innately we do. It's a reflection. It's a reflection. It's our own. We're all in this together. How can we be one, and not be associated with anything and everything that's occurring? How can we? I remember as a little kid, walking into the backyard, my little universe in the backyard, and playing with my friend, my invisible friend, and being able to see, like many of us could, some still can, but many of us could as kids. We could see the pixels, the pixels. You could see the waves and energy and color. And I remember being out there, and it's the age-old question, right? I'm 4 or 5 years old or whatever. I go to church, I hear that stuff. I'm like, something's not going on here, but there was still some. And I remember saying to myself, well, this is God. This is God. Now, at the time, I didn't say I'm God, but I was like, this is all God, every bit of it, And it's even if it's a hologram, whatever it is, there is nothing else, right? There's nothing else. It all goes back to the same place. You were talking about the body, this thing about the changing in the body. I've been feeling this for 2 years. I shouldn't even be able to walk. Some days I can't because I stretch so much and pop my back because I had a lot of back problems. But my body's healing. But it's not just a physical thing. That's what's weird. I can feel the fluid in my spine. It'll pop, and then I'll feel this cold trickle, right? So this stuff is real, and I think there's people all over, especially the last few years post-COVID. I think there's a lot of people that have been self-healing, and I don't know how this stuff can be kept under wraps much longer. I just don't see how it can happen. Like it's not about these topics and stuff that are, I just got kicked off of X, and for a year and a half I've been, I've never been on that platform, and it's a whole different vibe, and it's all about that stuff. You see some light worker starseed post and this and that, but most of it's tapped into that stuff. And I've seen it. I've looked into the mouth of the monster, and they're not talking about this. And this is what's really happening. And the only way we're going to be able to communicate that to each other is to keep doing what we're doing, and not rely on the physical apparatus as the proof and evidence that it's actually occurring. It's the knowing, the memories that return, and what they represent in the physical field and other fields that we're composed of, or that we walk in, or however you want to put it.
Well, I think that's enough for us for proof, but there are others who, when they see it, they will believe it. And so not only we, hundreds of thousands, millions, hopefully tens of millions, hundreds of millions, we are the proof. We are the proof. And when people begin to see that, the spontaneous healing, it's already happening across the planet. It is, but it's going to be even more profound. But not only that, and I just wanted to say, I much prefer talking about the evolution of the body and the soul to those other things. I don't visit that platform ever. But one of the things I wanted to just mention real briefly is and for each person, it may certainly be different, because it seems as if the psychic senses and the soul, what we call psychic senses, but what are really aligned more with the soul and the level of the soul awareness that become the soul abilities as opposed to psychic senses, they are really expanding. And about 4 years after my 2012 near-death experience, I shut mine down because it was very, very difficult to exist in that way, even in the metaphysical community, with so many people who had done things a certain way for decades, who had seen things a certain way for decades, who had believed a certain way for decades. And what was happening to me is more in alignment with where people are now. And so I'm able now to realign with that and reawaken that. And I just want people to know it's not just having more inner vision. It's not just having more clairaudience. And, a lot of people on a beginning journey, they ask, well, how do I open my third eye? Or why can't I hear? And I always say, the way I'm guided to answer these things is that if you're on a true journey that's in alignment with your soul, and you are partnering in communication with your soul, and your soul is guiding you, your abilities will awaken commensurate with your level of awareness and your ability to handle them, because most people aren't taught these foundational processes, self-awarenesses, energetic management, and that type of thing. And these higher dimensional abilities can be extraordinarily disorienting, because you see the person, and you see the person when they were young, and you see the person as they are maybe 20 years, 30 years in the future, right? According to the field of potentiality in this moment. It's not just that. There have been sort of more quiet prophecies of, eventually humanity, pardon me, I have braces, it's very hard for me to speak clearly. Eventually humanity will be rooted in the heart. Eventually no one will be able to hide their trauma from another. We won't be able to lie. We won't be able to, we can intend all day long, I guess, to deceive, but people won't be able to be deceived because they will be able to see. And it's not, well, if you're negative, you see a negative thing. I've only ever witnessed those statements coming from beings who don't want to be found out. They are in lineages that are continuing to propagate certain very limited philosophies or paradigms. And so they then reflect back to the person, well, if you see something, distorted or what have you, then you must be negative yourself. And actually, I've never found that to be true for anybody I met. I mean, is it true that sometimes we get triggered by people and it's not them, it's us? Yes. Yes, absolutely. But these higher dimensional capabilities of the soul they actually are, I want to say three-dimensional, but in a graphic sort of mathematical kind of way, right? Three-dimensional, where if I'm talking to a person on the phone and they're telling me a story, in my awareness, I'm standing in the middle of like a three-dimensional CGI graphic, and they're talking about their father and their uncle and their brother and their nephew and the dog, and you know, and I'm seeing the father and the brother and the nephew and the uncle, and I'm seeing all their lives and where they came from. We begin to perceive the soul and the org chart of the soul and what is not resolved within the soul, and where there are still timelines that need to be collapsed. I mean, this is, it's true, it's the truth. And when you begin to see that, when you begin to perceive the past and the future and the present moment all at the same time, you have to, we must, in order to not end up in an insane asylum, we must be able to exist in the present now moment in order to anchor ourselves in the reality of our choosing. Because we can remote view the future all day long, but healing doesn't happen there. Healing doesn't happen, in my world anyway, it doesn't happen when I'm out of my body. And I've almost never gotten any information that was helpful to me if I was, out of my body, other than particularly being taught by my soul family, but just, random traversing or gallivanting the universe or the planet. This is no joke. These abilities are not for the faint of heart. This can be very, very disorienting. And, ethics and morals certainly play a part too in how we use this information. That it's very difficult to put boundaries on the information at a certain level. On the beginning of my journey, I witnessed a lot of people, in my estimation, misusing psychic abilities, or sharing information that wasn't appropriate. And so I put a lot of boundaries on what I was even willing to see or hear or process, even in sessions with people. I know that there are some people that work that say, well, I saw some stuff, but they weren't ready to hear it, so I didn't say it. Well, who decided they were ready to hear it or not? That always troubled me, when people are trained that way. And so I decided to say to my soul, I don't want to know anything that isn't appropriate for the person, right? And I put all these boundaries on myself to the point where I was so limited, it was shocking that I even got information. But at a certain point, those boundaries begin to dissolve because of our frequency, because of our level of evolution, because of, some would say, the octave of, I don't like this word, but consciousness that we're existing in with the different densities. At a certain point, the self-imposed limitations and boundaries and restrictions that we put on because of the human condition, mistrust, competition, what have you, they begin to dissolve. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, judgment. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're. I said this the other night we got together with the guys. We made music, and we always seem to come together like we do. We always seem to come together and things come out. And I said, I feel like we're walking the plank. I feel like that we're at the center. There's a what I call the mother's womb, the part that she told me she doesn't even know what it is, and the only way to get in there is to be purified, is to be in total alignment, total unconditional, total trust and such. And I said, I feel like that we're all standing around this sphere to go into a new creation, and we've come through the initiations, and somebody's got to go first, and that's what I do. And what you're talking about is a reality. I've watched this. You listen to a lot of people in these circles over the years talking about putting up boundaries. They still talk about it. And it never jived with me. Because if you're going to put up a boundary, that's a construct of this illusion. And again, oneness is oneness. I've got to be just as tight with my whatever demon aspect as my angel aspect, or whatever they are. And I remember too when I was walking the streets and getting downloads, and I remember one of the biggest ones I ever got. And you know how you can always tell when that information comes in, and over the years it gets more and more expansive. And they said to me, 2:00 in the morning, walking through a park, just understand that everyone is going to know every single thing about you. And I just went, whoa. But then I realized what they were saying, flip that. So I think the example that you give, when you step into these certain abilities, who are you? You know, this speaks to so many things, to include you're a practitioner. I mean, I've received abundance for the work that I've done over the years. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, whatever. But the reality is it's all free. We're the free energy of the universe in a physical form. Everything is available to everyone. And the hoarding, the boundaries, the concealing, it's all the same energetic template. You know, what you see is what you get. And if it means that my greatest contribution to the world would be to open myself up and share every dark secret, every wild, crazy thing I've ever done, and I've done plenty, okay? Then so be it. I'm perfectly. This is it's the power that this the power that this experience or series of incarnations or whatever you want to call it that has been given that is given over us, that perception is it's time to go. It's not our adversary. It's actually what, like you said, it was created paradise, Eden. It was a grand situation, and we took another route. I don't know how this, there's a lot of narratives, but it's time to bring it back. And really, we're talking about fearlessness, not warlike fearlessness, not tear something down or point something out. And no, fearlessness in that I am a soul in the flesh. I live forever. I have the unlimited potential. And now these dots are connecting from the multidimensional, particularly the galactic, that wow, this isn't just like, hey, everybody, like Ginny, the previous Ginny said, waking up isn't love and light. It's, it comes with a great responsibility. We're basically, this is the way I've always explained, or try to align with it, is I am in an academy. I'm in the Soul Academy, and I'm being brought to a point where I can create a universe. But the reality is I already have. It's right here. It's what you know as Todd. It's this body, the parts that you can see and that you can't. It's an amazing time, and I think that you're bringing up, both of y'all actually, a really good point, which is, this isn't just everybody's going to put their feet up on the desk and hey, we did it. No. This is going to be a humbling experience. It's going to be even greater than it's been. I'm not talking dark nights of the soul here. I'm talking about being handed the keys to the kingdom. And you and I know, and we all know that you spoke to this about the psychic abilities. You get what you give. What goes around comes around. And the universe is not going to lay anything on you that you can't handle, because it's you. And it's also not going to give you anything if you're not ready, because it knows. You know. I feel ready. And I feel like there's a lot of people that are ready. And not because, I'm tired of all this. No, because, wow. You know that old saying about our greatest fear is a fear of our own power? Well, there is some truth to that. but I'm ready. I'm ready to walk around this earth and keep regenerating my body, grow younger. This is the field of opportunity that we have created. So even if we made a bad decision, you know what I mean? This is the value of all these multiple timelines and that we talked about and so on, the future, the past, is to be able to examine or take from the experience, because what happens? We make choices. And as with each choice we make, the universe kind of swipes the page clean. And again, so I think we missed it. I guess, that's what the previous Ginny said. She said, you wake up and you missed it. And you look back. That's why we can look back and look at these horrible periods of our lives and this and that. They were the greatest parts of our lives. That's where the greatest wisdom was created. And it's done by, it's done by the choices we make. And that's not a judgmental kind of phrase that I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when we do embrace that, we are taking ownership of every single thing. And someone didn't do this to me. Someone didn't do this to me. It may have felt like it, but this is the low level eyes. This is the eyes of the hologram. This is the eyes of the illusion which has really just been a presentation or a suggestion that we bought into. I'm not buying into it. I'm not buying into it anymore. Take me out if you want.
Some of the things that you mentioned remind me of a show that you posted last night, and it was Katie Kiss and Gareth Jenkins. And it was almost as, I don't know if Katie was interviewing Gareth, but it was almost as if Gareth was giving Katie a session. She was expressing thoughts, feelings, beliefs, issues, and Gareth was walking her through, I think, the Byron Katie, which is a more human, less galactic way of unwinding, and getting to the bottom of some of these things, fears, etc. Beliefs. A lot of it is belief. And he didn't mention a few things which really need to be mentioned, and that is the beliefs can come from many different places, we don't just learn them in school. Mom believed it, or dad believed it, or a friend believed it, or we believed it in a past life, and it's held in our subconscious mind, it's held in our DNA as a belief from our ancestry, or it's held in our soul star chakra because we believed it in a past life. So these are ancient beliefs. And some of the things that Katie was mentioning, some of it had a lot to do with society on Earth, but you could see that some of it was a pattern of multiple lifetimes believing a certain way. But one of the energies that just permeated the entire conversation, and I typed it in the comments, was the fear of evolution. And Gareth didn't mention that. The fear of evolution, and if that helps anybody right now, if you can just ask yourself, is the fear of evolution affecting me? Does the consciousness of the fear of evolution exist within my body, within my energy field, within my soul stream, within my DNA? There were years, at least a year and a half, as I recall, where I cleared fear of evolution 2 or 3 times a day in my awareness, where I was bumping up energetically or psychologically. And by psychologically, I mean mentally, emotionally, thoughts, feelings, emotions, judgments, unforgiveness, all of it. A lot of it had to do with the fear that I was holding as a soul, because my soul was so ancient. I didn't really remember. At a certain level of consciousness, I didn't remember remembering. And I wasn't sure. I didn't have a certainty of what would be on the other side when I did remember. And so for me, that was a big deal. For the people that take my classes, it's been a big deal. So if that helps anybody, then
That's a very good point. I watch that show. They come on every Tuesday. Tuesday in the north, Wednesday on the south. He's in Melbourne, Australia. And so they met like 3 years ago. and I think they were in a group and then just created this connection they have, and they kind of share it every week, and it's a pretty good contrast. But I've never, and I saw that comment last night, but I was kind of doing stuff, and now I'm glad you explained it, because that's a real thing. Like now that you've explained it, I'm going, well, from a soul's perspective, there's like there is a definition there. I could see that definition, because the universe is about expansion, and so I'm made in the image. I'm expansion. But on the other vernacular, the human vernacular, it's not even real. it's part of the presentation. The doubt, the smallness. But it's a real thing. It's a real thing to consider, because that, I guess, at the end of the day, when I say this other vernacular, it's like it is a belief system. Mm-hmm. It's almost like saying, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but I don't know if I'm going to die. They told us you're born and then you die. But the whole thing is, Franco told me after he transitioned, he came and he said to me, everything that you believe is wrong. And he was speaking in terms of like the full extent of this. Yeah. Every single, and so people think, well, oh, that religion's not real, or the government not. What? No. We're talking about the minute details here. We're talking about things that we don't even think about. I mean, this is a colossal enigma, wrapped up. It's just this. But by the same token, we have what it takes. And I feel like talking to the two of you today, and what kind of the stuff that's been coming in, it's time for those folks to walk the earth and be seen. And however that happens, it happens. I notice it here in this town. I went to because obviously I don't speak a lot of Spanish. I'm getting better. I go to this little grocery store, and I went the other day, and this young lady, there's 3 or 4 young ladies that work there, at the cash registers, and she says to me in Spanish, "What is your name?" And I said, "My name's Todd." And she said, "Come again?" I said, Todd Medina. And so I thought, well, that was nice. She asked me my name, Obviously, she's seen me in there. So I go back the next day, and I'm walking through the store, and I hear somebody say, Todd Medina. But there was such a reverence about it. You know what I mean? And I guess what I'm saying is, I know, and it even happened to me the other day with this old man. I have a friend here named Fred, and he tells me he sees you all the time. He was making a comment like, I see this man, he's a good man, or something like that. People can see. I notice it with little kids on the boardwalk. Their eyes are, like animal eyes. You know what I mean? Even these 2 horses I told you about. That was weird. For a moment, it's happening with the dogs, with cats over here. With the trees have just gone through the roof the last week. So, yeah, this thing about evolution, you could use another word, but that's a real deal. It's like even this the things that have happened to me in the last week. I'm not like, and I think you were speaking about this earlier in regard to people getting their gifts, right? I'm not hung up on it. It's I can see it's a natural progression, and I'm all in. So like what you asked me to say yes to, if I wanted to say yes to, that to me speaks to what's happening. We're saying, okay, we don't have to fight this thing. Enough is enough, but we don't have to fight this thing. We draw a line in the sand and say, this is who I am. This is what I am. And And you know, they went in and reconstructed and distorted all of the templates and this and that and all that stuff. But remember one thing, we project it. And they know that because they can't create it. We project it. So we can project what we want. And I think that is really what I'm trying to say and connect it to what you're talking about because, yeah, I talk to myself all day long. I talk to the trees. I talk to the water. I talk to the universe. I talk to the stars. They talk to me. You know, if you took a poll of people around the world, I wouldn't be surprised if there were hundreds of millions at all. We just don't talk about it. Like somebody puts out the telepathy tapes and all praise to her for doing it. Phenomenal. But that's not an aberration. This is normal. And I think somebody said the other day on one of the shows, or I saw it somewhere, that many of the great geniuses in the world are in mental institutions. Because they're walking in, they're seeing what you're talking about and what people are coming into.
Yeah.
Wow, this is... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to share one more thing. I have a podcast called Interspecies Evolution, and I have a little story I don't think I ever told you, but it kind of ties in sort of not so loosely with what you're talking about, you know, the kids and the animals and this and that. And I have a almost 4-year-old Labradoodle named Daisy. She's a black Labradoodle, and I've had her for 4 years. And 2 years ago, I was doing my podcast pretty aggressively every week. And I interviewed a woman named Penelope Smith, who's known colloquially in the United States as the grandmother of animal communication. And because I was interviewing her, even though I knew who she was, I did a little research and I just watched a couple of interviews of her just to be familiar with how she talks and the types of things that seem to be interesting to her, because I didn't want to bother her with questions or what have you. And I was watching somebody else interview her, and my little Labradoodle, when this is 2 years ago, she walked in, she looked up at the screen and she says, "I know her. I love her. I met her when I was in another body." And so I wrote it down. I know her. I love her. I met her when I was in another body. Now, I have to be honest. I know that she was a dolphin before. When she was a puppy, she loved water. She sat by the water bowl, in the water bowl. She slept around the water bowl. She had her paws in the water bowl, her ears in the water bowl. She was just always around the water. And when there was a pool, and I have 2 puppies from the same litter, when we had a pool, she was always in the water. And at one point, she told me I was a dolphin. And I said, "Oh, have you been a dog before?" She said, "No, this is my first time." And my husband's name also, as you know, happens to be Todd. And she chose him when we went to pick out the puppies. Anyway, it's a long story. Maybe one day if we're doing something not so serious, we could tell those stories. But so anyway, a few days later, I interviewed Penelope. And I said, "Penelope, I hope you don't mind, but I have a dog that thinks she remembers you from a previous life." And she said, "I know her. I love her. I met her when I was in another body." And Penelope closes her eyes for just a moment. And she goes, 2004, I was in the Caribbean swimming with the dolphins. She was a swimmer dolphin. And so that's really why, one of the reasons why I named my podcast Interspecies Evolution, because we are souls in bodies that have relationship, and we're coming back around to do the work of reclaiming our light and returning to wholeness, returning to oneness.
That's a great story. That's a really great story. And that's another thing too, is like, it's so weird. There's such a paradox to everything, but this life, this particular incarnation feels like, the fullness of it all. You know what I mean? Like But the truth is, it's another day. It's another day. We're the same. That soul is the same soul in a different body. This is what we do, right? I mean, this is the kind of memories that will, as they continue to come in, that will bring us into further alignment. Because it's going to give us the contrast of that's another thing. Franco told me when he came back. He talked about it's going to get so ridiculous you won't have a choice. In other words, everything that's we hold as a heavy burden and see as this whatever, it's nothing. It's nothing but a thing. Because when you had the perspective of the multiple lives and especially when you look at the overall bend of those lives, which is truly one life, one soul lineage, you see what you're working on. If we have loops come up in this incarnation, as we go spiral up, we see the same thing again, and we see the same thing again until that loop becomes a spiral. Well, why wouldn't it work the same way? You know what I mean? Because I don't know about you, but everything that seems to be presented here is taking the original and distorting it and changing this and changing that. But it's like when somebody takes a little piece of truth and tells a big lie, right? There's at the root, there's this truth, right? And so it's a pattern. But yeah, I don't know. I know, like, even when you start talking about dolphins and my feelings about the water, it's. Yeah, I just remember as a kid, jumping in the pool. I used to go to the pool every day in the summer because I lived across the street. And it was like I was in my own universe. You get under the water and you're just swimming, and it felt very familiar. It's just, yeah, the water's huge for me. It's absolutely huge. And I guess it's just, in a way, it's another form of plasma. I don't know. I felt a lot of plasma, though, the last few months. Not all the time, every day, but I can see it. I can feel it. Like, everything's changing. And I had this running joke with myself as I walk through the town, is it me or is it the town? You know what I mean? Has she changed or have I changed? Maybe everything's changing. Maybe it's bigger than all of us. But it is all of us. I don't know. I don't know that I don't have full memories like some people. I have some. But I can't even imagine that we've ever taken a journey like this. And Franco I used to ask him, I'd say, now, does the human have a soul? And he'd say, no, but yes. And I'd say, well, explain. He'd say, well, there's a soul lineage, and then there's a human lineage. So I see it as like the tree, and there's a branch, a major branch, or greatest, newest branch, or something that took on a colossal density and distortion and all that stuff, and we're not just bringing it back. There is a we are bringing it back. That's absolute, right? But there's this transformational quality, new code, it's new births, new universes, new gods, something based on what we're bringing back. I'm very humbled today, and I'm very honored to have two very good friends that the stars aligned, and to have back-to-back conversations like this has been really, it's been huge for me, and I really appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you. So do I. A lot of people are having water dreams now, or what they perceive to be water dreams. And when I travel out of body, and when I leave the Earth hologram and go into another hologram, which I do quite often, I come up out of what is a tank of water. And, some people see it as a firmament. I don't see in that same graphic. I'm coming up out of like a puddle of water. There was a Star Trek series recently called Star Trek Discovery, and they either had 4 or 6 seasons, I don't remember, but on the very last show of the very last season, in the last 20 minutes of the show, they reach a place where they call the elders or the founders or the race of beings that created. No, they don't really define it, but reality, I guess, is what they're alluding to. The creators of creation, I guess. And when they get there, it's like they're walking on boardwalks in a grid pattern. And if you jump down in to the open area, you jump down into a different planet. And I told my husband that's what it's like, but I don't see it as high tech. I see it like puddles of water. And they just go on and on and on and on and on, and they're not labeled. You have to know where you're going. At least I do. I just know where I'm going. But I think that is some of the remembering that people are going through now, and that is the the nature of the universe being this liquid plasma, or the nature of the materia that travel through to each hologram. And I suspect that's why so many people are having what they perceive to be water dreams now.
Yeah, I never thought about that. What you're saying, and then, but I remember as a kid in '60s TV, I liked the time tunnel, these futuristic type stuff, stuff like that. It was already in me, right? But there was one show, and I don't know what the name of it was, and I don't even know what the vehicle was, but they would come out from the floor, and I guess it was like a submarine, maybe, I don't know, but or a spaceship, but they would come out of the floor in their suits, and they'd be coming out of water, and that always intrigued me, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about. That makes a lot of sense. But
I mean, we all potentially perceive things differently, especially out of body traveling or soul traveling. That's, to me, the soul traveling. And there are different constructs. For me, mine is like Machu Picchu, and then you go up to the top of the mountain, and that's where you come out of the entire multiverse.
Oh, wow.
Or yeah, and but down within just like the cityscape, the urban planning, there are just, every planet has its own construct, and you can travel wherever you want, if that's your purpose as a soul.
Wow. Well, wow. Yeah. I think things are moving really fast now. Mm-hmm. Really fast, like no BS. I mean, really, really fast. It's I don't know how to put my arms around the words, but it does. To me, today feels like, and I don't think it's just me. Morgan and I were talking first part of the month, and I said to her, and I don't normally say stuff like this. I said, there's a corridor coming on the 11th through the 21st or 22nd, whatever. She said, I think there's a corridor. We're in the middle of one from the 1st to the 11th. And then the other day I wrote her and I said, I think we're both right. I think we're halfway. But this month has been extraordinary. There's no doubt. And there's more to come.
Every day is a corridor, like a crystalline bridge within each of us, to integrate and integrate and integrate and shift our assemblage point, align with, so-called higher aspects of us, other dimensional aspects of us, and remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Touche. Yeah. Touche. Look at these numbers. God. 42, 11, 21, 21. 11, 21, 21. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for holding space. And apologies to the brother that I had to cancel the show. He's a new friend, and I'm going to get him back on here pretty quick. He's written a pretty cool book with some specifics from the Arcturians. So that ought to be interesting. I don't know what else to say, but I'm just very grateful that you're my sister and my friend, and I'm happy to be even more transparent in public than I've been in my past, and I'm very grateful that you have spent this time with me today. I'll be in touch.
All
Thank
right,
you.
I know it.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
We'll see you
Bye,
later.
everybody.
Bye-bye.